Hello, this is my English practice and I'm talking about my personal development. Today I'm going to implement the time limit feature on the server side. Yeah, I already implement the time limit feature, but it is in the client side and yeah, I realized yesterday I should implement it in the server side because there are two reasons. Um, First one is uh, if if the player leave leave the game, um, the time limit feature doesn't work. So time limit feature on the client side doesn't work. So I should implement it on the server side. Yeah. And second, uh, if I implement it in the server side, um, we can debug the game easily because I'm going to make it possible to configure the time limit deadline like this. In this screen, um, I'm planning to implement new fields to configure the time limit deadline, and the value is set for each player. And in my assumption, the value I set the value 1 second or 2 seconds for other players. So then start the game. I play the game normally, but the other player uh, cannot play because um, the time limit has come. Time limit comes fast, so it is not good for normal. But when I want to debug the game, other players I want other players to take actions immediately. Yeah, whatever actions. So the time limit feature helped me debugging the game. So I have two reasons to implement it on the server side. So today I'm going to implement, and yesterday I talk about the architecture, and yeah, and yeah, there are four approach to implement, and I choose this. This is most naive but simple way to implement. Yeah, this is not real time, but yeah, it is enough to check every seconds. So I choose this, and yeah, no more money needed. Yeah, and right weight. Yeah, so I'm going to implement. E to E is okay. Commit anyway. Okay, and yeah. example, I need to implement a time limit feature for all of the actions, like um, yeah, all of the required actions. For example, there is like this. Yeah, this. So we should take a look at client side. Yeah, this is the definition of the response data type, and there are two types of response type: require and notify. And the require type means required action. So these 10 types of actions should be implemented with time limit feature, and this data has a require setting, and this type has a limited time. So I need to implement all of this. First of all, I'm taking on move. This is most important. Every player, every turn, take move actions. Yeah, and yeah, so I need to set the time limit when this information is returned to the client. So I search this type, and this type is used only here. Yeah, this is the turn end. So when the turn is end, this information is delivered to the client, and yeah, this block calculate available destinations and return to the player, next turn the player. At the same time, we should set up the default actions. So yeah, so the logic is like that. Record the current timestamp and set the future timestamp, which means time limit. Yeah, and this data is stored in the game state as a task, and yeah, and the client side heart beats every seconds, and every seconds it check if the time limit is exceeded or not. If exceeded, the default action happens. Default action occurs. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's I'm planning. So I need to design the data structure in the logical game logic state. This is the most important, and but I don't think I have a two option. The data should be stored in logical state or game state, but the game state is defined another module. This game state. Game state has three fields like this: logic state and task queue and game parameters. And we will look at logic state in another module, but task queue is also affected during this implementation, because this task is the most important data structure, and task has a task type and payload, and based on the task type, server side module execute their process. And so in this for this implementation of time limit feature, we should append the new task to task queue, this field, and no, default action as a task is pushed when the time limit exceeded. So in the game logic state should store the timestamp first recorded, and the timestamp first recorded is not needed. The timestamp which is time limit, that's it. It should be stored in the game logic state, and the heartbeat happens and check if that timestamp is exceeded. When the heartbeat comes, the server side get the current timestamp and compare it with the time limit timestamp. If the current timestamp is exceeded already, it means the time limit exceeded. So at the time, new task push to task queue. The task is for taking default action. Okay. So, time, this logic state should have a timeline, time limit, and time deadline number, and I think the required action is always happen only one of required action is always happening. So deadline is the number of deadline to store is 1. 1 is enough. So this is okay. Deadline, and for example, when the data required actions is returned to the client, at the same time deadline is updated. Current timestamp plus this is milliseconds, so milliseconds and seconds and minute 5. This means 5 minutes. It's too long. 30 seconds is okay as a deadline. That's it. When the it's okay. And next, I'd like to introduce the new data type for heartbeat. Heartbeat is not a response, it's request, and it is similar to fetch, and we should heartbeat to server and like this. And due to the type definition, player ID field is required, but this is not used. No, this is used, but this is not important, trivial. This field is used for also authorization. Yeah. The server side always check if the request is valid or not, based on the player ID. Player ID should be matched to the ID of the WebSocket connection. So in this case, I don't care about player. I don't need to care about player ID. Heartbeat to server is good, and okay. Since adding this field, we need to update the new. For example, deadline is 0. Generate task and case Harvey, and here is the custom event handler. So in the event handler, for example, move handler push new task to the task queue like this. So I needed to create a new handler. It is called heartbeat handler. And it should be be here, should be created here. Harvey handler Harvit beat Harvey handler and yeah, current time is greater than the deadline. It means deadline exceeded, so push a default action to the queue. Yeah. This handler should return the task array. And yeah. Like this. But here I realized should tell it task type, which type of actions. Yeah, there are 10 types of actions, so the move when the player should move, the default action for the move happens or something like that. So we should record the information when the deadline is set. For example here, just setting up deadline, but no information about task types. So we need to update this data structure, time limit, and yeah, and this structure default, yeah, deadline and default, and I need to consider about this data type. Is it okay to set just task code, or should set up task payload? For example, move. In the move handler, there are a lot of task type, and they have their own payload. The payload is different from each each types. So I think the default task or default task array should in my opinion, yeah, for the future, when the process get more complicated, the default actions might be a multiple task. Yeah. But for now, no need to be array. And default task. This is good. Okay, let me look at the time limit and deadline and default task is no like this, and in this case this destinations. So in this case, next player are going to somewhere. So as a default action, needed to specify default destinations. Yeah. So this value move is position. Okay. But 0 0 is not good because next this position should be valid value, so need to be able to be reached from the current location of the displayer. So in this case, and the player ID is next player ID. Like this. Okay, this is good structure. 30 seconds later, this task will be pushed to the task queue. Yeah. but we need to think about task validation. Yeah. We need to think about task validation. Okay. But yeah. First of all, let's finish heartbeat handle. LS. Time limit is this and TL like this, and default task. Yes. Heartbeat handler. Yeah. Oh. This is good. This is good. But the let's think about when the request is coming at the same time when the default actions occurs. In this case, in the server side module, this execute goes this process, and this update function has a lock. Yeah, block concurrency, because so there are possibility to come to possibility to receive multiple requests at the same time. So in order to make it consistent, this function block other thread and focus on the one request, and while executing, blocking happens. This is cool, but the heartbeat and the normal action comes at the same time. Let's think about it. And this update make sure the execution is at the most one thread. Generate tasks, and task is pushed to the queue and prioritize and update it. After that, might receive the normal action. Default action happen and normal action happen. At the time, the default action is valid and the normal action is invalid. It is regarded as timeline exceeded. So I need to implement this feature. A little difficult. Generate tasks and task. Basically, for example, there is a validation in the move handler. The move validation is pushed at first. So when the move request is received, move validation is pushed at first, and this task is executed. This task validates the payload of the requests, and in this task calls this function, and in this function validate some conditions. It's your turn or not your turn. If it's not your turn, never change the game state and return. Return means the task queue is a remaining task in the task queue is invalid. No need to execute it. So in this move validation handler, check the conditions, and if all of the condition passed, never change the game state but return continue. It means that you should execute the continuing tasks in the queue. And I think I need to add a similar structure to validate the task. For example, move is okay. Move is not okay because yeah, there is one default task and no validation. It Yeah, and the default task is like this, so it's executed it's executed without validation. So this is update the this updates the game state, although this task is invalid. So I needed to take care about it. How should I implement? Let me think. Move table. I think when the required action is set to someone, the next task is expected. A specific task is expected because system is requiring actions, a kind of actions. A specific action is required, so the validation so the I mean required action validation is the information about required action should be stored in this data structure. And not this, but this. Yeah, because it is related to time limit feature, but it's more general because even if there is no time limit feature, should validate the task because this server requires a specific actions. So when the other request has come, should how to say should validate, but validate means like a test, so should reject block but required actions should required actions. Let me but the thing is, task is not request. There is a request and task. This is not same. So the server side expect the request. Yeah, because request is an action taken by players, and the task is a unit of information for updating game state. And task is generated from request. So, and the server expecting request, and if the timeline is exceeded, time limit exceeded, request should happen or task should happen. Basically, the simple type of request is same, can be handled as a task. These types can be converted to task directly, but the custom type of request like this is their own handler, and in this handler the information request is generating some kinds of tasks like this. So the system is expecting the request, and expecting the request. So the time limit is exceeded, the request the system regards as the request has come and never accept a new request. So we should how to to make it not duplicated request. Make request not duplicated. So in this function, receive the event. This is request. We can check, we can validate the request from here, but yeah, of course, this game state has information what requests we are expecting. If the event, this means request, if the type of request is not expected, don't need to execute these functions, this process. So we can add a validation process here, and yeah, we can access the game state, and game state should have information about request, expected request. Yeah, let's compare with them and check it. Yeah, everything is okay. Yeah, so mm. So rec validation field, and is this enough to server and rec? And these information have yeah, player ID. So expecting player ID and request oh, yeah, type and payload is defined here, so request validation. Let me go with this and turn it. pasta tea. Okay. Let's see. Move. Request validation. To server. Customize. Move payload. This should. Oh, why? Type move. Ooh. And display and move. Move to server. But to this to server data, so send message like this. So on the server side as well, or like this. And in order to validate the request, the field is needed, type field is needed, but the payload is not enough. No needed. Payload is no needed. Type and player ID is correct. It's okay. So I want to change player ID and string. Key of rec. Yeah. Is this correct? I'm wondering if the expected request is always identified or not. Always identified or not. request validation. Always identified. If always identified, this data structure is good. If the if there is a time when the multiple some kinds of requests gonna be okay, we need to change this data structure in order to handle the cases, but for now it's okay. Always identify the expecting player ID and request type. And yeah, I want to set request validation on this function. Request validation should be player ID and request type gonna be move, and player ID is next player ID, but the same. Yeah, I should okay. Okay, and I add request validation, and in this function we can access the request validation, and event payload should have player ID value, and event type should match to request type. Yeah. This is good. And I also need to update request validation when the request is received. And heartbeat handler have possibility to execute the task instead of the request. It means so when the request is not coming, heartbeat handler can generate task for the request. So when the task is pushed, we should update rec validation in order to avoid executing duplicate tasks. Also, event type might be heartbeat. This is like this. Heartbeat or past the request validation should call these functions. And in this function, task is generated. And when the task is generated, should update the request validation. Because the valid task is generated and pushed. So from the time we should reject the new request. So yeah, needed to update request validation. But I don't need to implement this process. It depends on this process, because this function have a blocking feature, so don't need to okay, I want to use this, and update generate task and do task and task queue. Oh, I think I don't need to implement. But yeah. Okay, I understand, but I cannot explain it in English. What I'm thinking is, yeah, request and task and required actions. Request comes, task is generated, and task is executed one by one, and game state is updated for each tasks. So how to game state is updating game state, and required actions are set to game state in the game state. And this process is executed executed on the single thread, so it means the execution is the number of its execution at the same time is 1, so the no concurrency. So when the request comes at the same time, but there is a little bit difference of time, so the later request is blocked and wait for the game state updates. Okay, and at this time required action is set it, and also request validate. I update it now. So required actions means time limit and request validation is also set here. So when the second request is starting its execution, the request validation is updated already, so validation is happen here, and if this is same type of request, request validation works correctly, and rejects the request, duplicated the request. Yeah, so I believe I can, So previously I'm thinking about should I update the request validation when the task is generated? Do I need to implement updating the request validation here? Because task generation means receiving request correctly. So I'm wondering I should implement the request validation, update the request validation here, but I don't need to because the execution is blocked until here. So game state is updated while blocking next request. So I don't need to update the request validation. Just update here at the same time of required actions and time limit is set. Yeah. Okay. Let me think. Uh, when the heartbeat comes, heartbeat and request comes. But I think this is same. Heartbeat comes first. Heartbeat comes first, and the same request comes later. Oh, you don't see my coding screen, so okay, I explain on iPad. Yeah. So when the WebSocket message is coming, the update function is called. Yeah. But I'm not sure. This is so difficult. This function is called, and in this function the block concurrency while is called, but I think this is a closure, so I take care about the time of the evaluation, the code. When this is called, but this function might be evaluated at this code is called. Yeah. Evaluated in advance this code. It means this function is same here, same. This function is this, and these functions might be evaluated in advance, and in that case generated task is no, it's okay, because it's okay. This is a callback, so when the state is given this function is evaluated. Yeah, I think so. So it's okay. heartbeat comes first and the normal request comes later. The heartbeat okay, so heartbeat is heartbeat this okay. So the first heartbeat, it can take the game state and and generate tasks function is called, and the event type is heartbeat. This condition is true. This is called, and heartbeat handler is called. The heartbeat is past request validation, and heartbeat handler is called. And in this function, we push the default task, default action when the time limit is exceeded. So task is pushed and the game state is updated. Pass through request validation, and default task is pushed, and task update the game state, GS game state, and this is set required action, next required action, and also next time limit, and next request validation. This value is updated at the same time, always same time, and this value is stored in the game state, and this process is blocking concurrency, so this is executed at single thread, on the single thread. So the normal request or normal request that has come almost at the same time is waiting for this execution, and when this execution is finished, the request is starting the process, but the request validation is already updated, so this request is regarded as invalid and rejected. This is what I want. Okay. And vice versa. Normal request comes first and heartbeat comes later. Normal request is pass the request validation because the request is expected, and the not default task task based on the request payload is pushed, and the task is executed. Task update the game state. At the time, this these fields are updated. Yeah, yeah. So time limit is also updated, and the heartbeat is waiting for this execution, and this execution is finished. The heartbeat execution is starting, but time limit is updated, so the heartbeat nothing to do because deadline is not exceeded. Yeah. So the heartbeat handler is always called, but time diff gonna be under 0, so not exceeded. So the empty task is generated, so nothing happens. So it works. Okay. It works. Today, it's time to finish. Yeah, it's time to finish, but I want to remove the errors. Request validation. Request type is okay. Okay. Tomorrow I'm going to implement these features. Thank you for watching.